everyone. I will try in 10, 15 minutes not to bore you to death and try to explain a bit the link between what's happening in policy right now and what will happen in the next, I would say, 2-3 years, and the relation to the cloud industry and the cloud market and the discussion that there are about, let's just say, cloud interoperability, data portability, data interoperability that's happening in Europe right now. In just a quick word, basically, because I get this question all the time about sort of what is my job at Eclipse and what we do. Basically, what I do is I hang out with a lot of engineers, business people, and policymakers, and I sort of stay in between them, listen to what they say, and sort of see how we can adapt business models, how we can comply with legislation, and how we can, instead of being victim of legislations and policy, leverage those policies for different business models and market share, maybe, for instance, or innovative product. In those 10 minutes, I'm not your lawyer or a lawyer, so if you want something to be confirmed and if you want to take strong decisions out of this, get yourself a lawyer. That's something that's really important, and I want to say before I do this presentation. And also I will use a lot of different acronyms, so if I get crazy on the acronyms, just look at me with big eyes and so that I understand that I'm saying something that is not understandable. So in 10 minutes, something really short. The biggest news and the thing that everyone should remember is that there is a text called the Data Act that was published very recently, proposed a few years ago. The idea of this Data Act is threefold. First, promote data exchanges, ensure cloud interoperability, and finally, of course, respect privacy and trade secrets, because we're still talking about data and different business models that exist. And the idea is that while you promote all of this, you reduce the cost as much as possible for companies. How? Through the development of standards and specifications that company will have to follow so that everyone is sort of exchanging data and ensuring interoperability of cloud in the same manner, and they don't have to reinvent the wheel every 2 weeks with their own different projects how to do it. And for PaaS and SaaS, so product as a service and software as a service, these are legal obligations. You don't really have a choice. You have to follow the standards. You have to follow the different specifications. Your specification have to include specific elements. Otherwise, you're not following the law, and that's illegal. And then you will be fined and punished depending on the level of the issues that you have. So now that I sort of set up the stage, the idea is what should this open specification say, and what those open standards should say, and also why does it matter? I'm not going to read the whole text because, again, I don't want to bore you to death. So I would just refer you to what it's called the Chapter 6 of the Data Act and the Chapter 9 of the Data Act if you're really interested, and say a few things about this. First, the specification and the standards, they should include, for interoperability purposes, elements such as data collection, data structure, data format, vocabularies, open APIs to access data in real time, achieve interoperability between the same services, and allow data portability between the different services of the stack. With all of this without impacting security. How? Well, that's the issue that we need to discuss as well, because those specifications and those standards, they don't exist. So the idea is that we build them. And of course, they should include other elements such as syntactic interoperability and portability for data, application services, etc. I'm saying this as if it would be easy, but that's what the text is saying. Now, why does it matter? Because standards in the Data Act allows what's called presumption of conformity. If you adopt the standards, then you're sure that you're going to be in compliance with the CRA. Therefore, you reduce the cost entirely for your business. And the second reason why, it's because there's been a discussion this morning, I think just before, through 2 different keynotes about the issues or the challenge that there is on the European market. We've heard hyperscalers many times, we've heard the issues of competition many times, etc., etc. So specification and standards are going to be built on this. If your company and if your organization doesn't sort of start to contribute to discussion around standards, then you won't be the one defining the way interoperability that you want will exist on the European market. And that's the why. The second reason is that specification. So again, standards and specification are 2 different things. Maybe I should have started with this. Standards are developed by something that we call ESOs, European Standardization Organization, or NSOs, National Standardization Organization. Think about, if you're French, you think about AFNOR. If you are German, you think about DIN. If you are Italian, I don't remember the name of your organization. But basically, you have an organization that is here to officially develop standards for the law. Those standards, bodies, NSOs, ESOs that I've mentioned before, they leverage document that they call specification or open specification. If you build an open specification before the standards making procedure, then those bodies, NSOs, ESOs that I've mentioned before, will have to leverage those specifications. Why? Because there is something in the text that really says the way specification has to be developed is open, transparent, and is driven by consensus. There is a reason why the institution want this. It's because they want to be able to push for the industry to go for the targets that they have. So now, what should we do? We have understood that first, the text want it. Second, that it's an opportunity for businesses in Europe if they want interoperability. Basically, if you have a small market share and you want to be interoperable with an organization, a company that has a larger market share, then there is an opportunity for you. So what should we do? First, we should follow the work that ESOs and NSOs are doing. If you don't follow it, then you can be sure that the implementation of this Data Act that I've mentioned as a key piece of legislation will not fit what you want, because the organization and the companies that are sitting in this NSOs and the ESOs, they defend their own interests. They don't defend the interest of your own company. So look at it, and then you will see that there are decisions, and devil is in the details, because in the end, it's very easy to sort of comply the way you want to comply. And if the standards are the one deciding whether or not you are in compliance because of this presumption of conformity that I've mentioned before, then you're kind of screwed as an organization. The second is build the specification that you want. If there is a way that you think interoperability will be in the advantage of your organization, it's only by building the specification that you want to see on the market by yourself or with your partners or with like-minded partners that you'd be able to actually achieve what you want to achieve, which is recognition by the institution that those specifications achieve the goal of the Data Act. And then the third point is to prove to the institution your point. At one point, you will be in a situation where you will have different players that will be advocating for their own specification. I am a large market company. I'm not really in favor of interoperability because it's not in my interest to do so. I will advocate for such specifications that are promoting interoperability the way I want it to happen, will be recognized by the institution. If I am a smaller player and I want interoperability to apply to a certain manner, then it's for me to advocate to the different institutions, well, look, if you don't do interoperability that way, as a smaller player on the European market, this will not be in my interest, and the Data Act wants to promote diversity of players. They want to promote interoperability. So in Eclipse, all of this that I've mentioned, it's something that we do. We do build specification. At the moment, I think we had a conversation yesterday or the day before yesterday. That wasn't on Sunday, so that's definitely on Friday. About the fact that already in Eclipse, we have 3 different specifications about interoperability of cloud services. The idea is that once we have those specifications, once we have achieved the thing that the CRA wants to have, we'd be able to push for those specifications within the NSOs, national standardization bodies that I've mentioned before, the ESOs, the European one, but also to the European institution. All of this so that the principles of open source, the principle of openness, the principle of interoperability and competition on the market will be achieved. It's not something that we can do by ourselves, because that's not the role of Eclipse, right? We are not here to just build everything and hire engineers to build this. The idea is that we gather different industry players that are collaborating together towards one goal, developing software. In that case, that's developing specification that could be leveraged by policies. Now, what should we do now, right now? I think the standardization request is not out. I'm not entering into details about what is a standardization request, but basically you have time. You have time to gather the different industry players that think like you and try to see how to build specification together and how to make sure that those specifications are recognized by the institution and recognized by the standardization bodies. Now, if you have any question on this, that's the end of the presentation. I know I used a lot of different acronyms. I probably spoke very quickly. So feel free to just ask questions if it was not clear about sort of what would be the interest for your organization or for the market as a whole to do all of what I've mentioned. Thank you.